Right, so I think we are the penultimate lap of 2 days pre-PATS, despite having 18 sessions, and I'm the 38th speakers, and my topic is actually strategic planning. I'm not sure how strategic we are if we put us at the penultimate lab, but I believe, but I can tell you it's data-driven. As much as Ashwin was trying to convince us that the numbers make sense, simply because 13, yesterday's morning's number was 141. Yesterday afternoon was 138. Today morning we had 127. And eventually now we have 112 or something, and we are trading up. Because before we come to the final end, we are sure everybody who's actually sleeping would have woken up and tuned in. My topic is strategic planning, but I thought we would probably use a real life example of a company that started way back in the year 1997, 1998. This small Italian family that migrated to Australia, bought a small vineyard, and probably thought the largest market at that time, now it's China, but that time, the largest market in the world was in America, and they actually wanted to export their wine, which was this yellowtail wine. They went to America. The numbers in America at that point in time was they couldn't pass 0.3% of the market share of all imported wines into America. They were controlled all by the Italian and French companies. The top 10 marketing companies in the wine market was importing 90% of the wine. These people had no chance to get in, and they actually thought, what is it that we could make a difference? And that's, ladies and gentlemen, is actually strategic planning for us. Because what they did was eventually said, let's concentrate on a market which is non-wine drinkers. Let's disfranchise, democratize the idea of drinking wine, bring it to a more affordable market segment, and they actually targeted non-wine drinkers and made it a lot more available at the normal family grocery stores. And within 3 years, they actually grew from a 0.3 market share to 20% market share. Everything that I've told you now is exactly what's in the first chapter of Professor Kim's book in Blue Ocean Strategy, which is the first publication in 2005. Now that's, ladies and gentlemen, is strategic planning for us. Because if Rotary is to look at strategic planning, we are trying to be everything to everyone. And that's basically the Rotary's strategic planning weakness or strength, as we probably want to look at it. This next couple of slides establishes our idea of strategic planning, both at the district level, eventually at the club level, and even more granular at some point in time. We're looking at the phases of strategic planning, looking at the resources that we can actually empower the presidents with, especially going from DG KSTO to Dato Bindi, and also look at some of the resources that we actually will share with you at the DTA. Now, this slide tells us two stories. One, what is right and wrong with our district. One side, you've got the district governor, my governor, KSTO, and the other side, you've got 7 pictures of Dato Bindi. One small to Zed, who actually came a couple of slots before me. Zed, you have got a lot of work to do because you probably have to get a nicer profile picture of the district governor. All this was from her Facebook, which I managed to get last night. Now, why I put up this is simply because strategic planning is basically what, if you are a marketing person in a company, you'll probably call it unique strategic plan. If you're a young guy or young at heart, falling in love, and when your girlfriend or wife says, look, what is it in me that you like? And you probably say X factor because you can't really tell her why you like the butt which is on her. Or we're looking at what the movie makers call the genre of the movie and what some of us call the mojo. But if you look at strategic planning, District Governor KSTO has probably got it very right. He's very focused. He's very clear that he will be known as the governor that took past the district, past the 2,000 mark. We have never achieved that number since the district was broken up in 1991, and only in the year 2021, after 30 years, we've been able to actually breach that 2,000 mark, and now we are at 2095, if I'm not mistaken, with 6 new clubs, including some of the satellite clubs that have been formed. So that's basically what District Governor KSTO's differentiator is, and that's his strategy. If you look at the good plans that Dato Bindi has actually shared with us yesterday and today, we can look at things like the um, the on the 4th of July, we have the mental health program. Yes, thanks, Kamaru. The mental health program, and 7 programs that he actually planned for us throughout this week. But if you look at the numbers that is coming from, so I'll take 2 examples. One is membership example, which is if you look at what district governor presented yesterday, Dato Bindi presented yesterday, Sheikh Mehta's get 1 for 1, and her idea of increasing 2 regardless of your membership strength, and eventually what Raj and Shirley shared just now and says, look, we want to go past 200 marks and we want to increase 2 clubs in our district. If you look at where these numbers are coming from, strategy is simply looking at what is the numbers that we have at this point in time. So if you look at our clubs, this data was not shared, but it was shared to the AGs a couple of weeks ago. There are only 44% of our clubs, which is about a shade below 40 clubs who have actually grown even in KSTOs years. The 230 new members that we have increased in the last 7 months only comes from 40 clubs. That's about 44%. The rest of the clubs, nearly a third of our clubs never grew, and 20% of our clubs actually went down. So if you look at where these numbers are coming from, if Dato Bindi wants 200 plus, if Raj wants 200 plus, it is to go to this 40 clubs and make them grow. It is no point trying to flog a dead horse, especially if a club doesn't want to grow purely either because of cultural or legacy, or purely because of other strategic needs that they probably wouldn't want to grow. And that's one example. And if you look at the other example of TRF, Dato Bindi wants to raise 300,000 for annual fund, 50,000 for annual polio, and also 50,000 for endowment. But if you look at the data that PDG, the city, shared with us today morning, you can realize over the years, a third of our clubs don't give to the annual fund. I think the number was 22 out of 84 clubs don't actually give anything to the annual fund last year. And this number has been consistent. The number, if I'm not mistaken, is 27, 24. There was a year where it was very low, but eventually came back to the 20 plus. So these 20 clubs, recalcitrant as far as annual funds are concerned. So if Dato Bindi is to raise 300,000, the strategic idea is to look at this 75% of our club and says, can we raise that money? Polio, the fight is even double harder, simply because the numbers the PDG City shared with us is 50% of our clubs don't give anything to polio over the years. They've been very consistent. Polio is not our business. So there is no point trying to talk to these clubs and says, look, Sheikh Mehta says 1,500 per club for polio this year. It is best to go to this 50% of the clubs that gave money to polio and eventually look at where we are going. So ladies and gentlemen, if I had shared the need for strategic planning, it's purely that. It's an alignment from RI towards what we want to do at the district and what we want to do at the club. Simply because Rotary happens at the club level. Regardless of what the district thinks, regardless of what the governors think, and regardless of what the RI president thinks, if at the club level it doesn't move, it doesn't get done. 2, annual cycles have not been a very effective way of managing our long-term strategies. 3, we must be able to optimize our people, our resources, and the finite numbers that we have with us, and also start looking at a very focused trajectory. I've also had the luxury of being able to look at many of our presentations over the last 2 days, and I can pinpoint at least about 7 or 8 clubs. Some of the very good examples is actually things like Rotary Club for Bukit Kiara Sunrise, right? So when Bukit Kiara Sunrise started many, many years ago, they were very strategic in their thinking. We will be a breakfast club. They are the ones who wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday to actually have their meeting. And they have a very good program in the REF, the Rotary Education Foundation, which is not only a great program towards educational empowerment, but also has been a great funnel of membership for them. You look at Rotary Club of Tampin, they are known for the Rotary Annual Day that they do. Rotary Club of Burnham Valley, IAG Nirinder shared the ideas with us, which is the HOTS program, which is hug of trees, hugging our trees, and ties in very well with the 7th area of focus that we have. Rotary Club of Banda Utama, the great work that they actually did with Orang Asli in the Belum Forest. Rotary Club of Ramanputra, course-based badminton. Rotary Club of Kamarul's Club, which is Club Rotary Ipoh Selatan. President Padma was very impressed with the fact that she actually says, look, she's out to do this Road to 80 program, and she's done 47 out of it. The 47th program, if I'm not mistaken, is to get Kamarul, who's a recalcitrant donor towards the annual fund, to actually start donating towards the annual fund. So, Kamarul, great job there. Looking at Rotary Club Pandamaran, again, we had competition yesterday on the floor with Tilaga mentioning that she wants to do 50 projects. And IPP Tajul from Perlis speaking about the 117 hours project that he wants to do in 2020. Now, this exactly is what the strategic priority should be. If I could just run through a few more slides on what at the club level you could be doing. One, there are 4 phases. This is actually mentioned even in the strategic planning document that's put out by Rotary. If you look at the strategic planning overview, what I call an assist, then developing a vision is to be looking at the making of the plans, which is the setting up of the vision, looking at the goals below it, putting the strategic priorities below it, and parking all your programs and with the resources that is needed, and tracking this progress over the short and the long term. If there are ideas that you may want to impute, is to actually get this, what type of club are we? Again, I can share some of the experiences I had as an AG or currently with my 4 clubs. I will not go to Burnham Valley and tell them, look, you need to increase 2 members even in this year. Because the last I heard Burnham Valley increase is actually when I became AG last year, they actually recruited 1 member, and that was after 7 years. So Burnham Valley would not actually help Dato' Bindi achieve her numbers, but Burnham Valley is tied in very well with the HOTS sustainability area of focus. So again, that is very clear in terms of strategic identification of what type of club you are. Where are we now? Where do we want to go? And what is the resources that we have in our way? And eventually coming up with a vision for the club and then outlining those strategic priorities. So they can be along your 5 avenues of service, they can be along the 7 areas of focus, they can be along the 4 strategic priorities, which is reach, engage, impact, and adapt. It can be along the 3 pillars of Rotary, but as long as they tie in very well with either RI, with the district, and with the club. There are some tools which is prescribed for us to use. Some of these tools are actually mentioned in the strategic priority document, which is basically the strength, what business people call the SWOT analysis, but here we call it the strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats. Strength, challenges, opportunities, and threats. But what I would call the RISE matrix, which is the reduce, increase, create, or eliminate. If you look at the RISE matrix, it's a much more easier document to use. So everything that you put into the RISE matrix along those 4 quadrants gives us an idea about what is it that we want to reduce in terms of our club, what is it that we want to increase, what is it that we want to create which is not there, and what is it which is there which is not helping us move forward and probably eliminate them. This RISE matrix is actually a very good document that was developed by BCG, the Boston Consulting Group guys, to look at how strategic planning should be done. So whether you are comfortable using the strength, challenges, opportunities, threats, or whether you're more comfortable using a lot more what I think were practical document like the RISE matrix, they probably work very, very well. We must take note of the people that we have, the timelines of our program, the timeline of our leadership, and then again the fact that we have leaders that come and go every year. And eventually we have abbreviations for them as in the incoming, outgoing, and eventually past. But I suppose we should develop a strategic plan which is not only short-term, but also looking towards the long-term, looking at our resources, the best practices that we can borrow not only from other clubs, sister clubs, even the region or even RI, and the partners that we can do. I want to share this whole document which simply outlines in terms of where are we looking at the visions. Once we know where we want to be, we look at the visions. we start putting the annual goals that we have. Now it's called not a presidential citation, it's called the Rotary citation. I think for this year it still remains 13 out of 25. And it's very, very easy to do this because you can keep changing it even until the last day. But once you have an annual goal set, start looking at those strategic priorities, parking those programs below it with all the resources, people, and partners. Eventually, we have a game changer in our hand. The next few slides, I'm not sure whether it is very easy for you to read, but I'm sure the district training team will share it with you because we have developed this over the last 2 sessions. A one-page matrix of how Rotary strategic planning should be done at the club level. So if you see this one-page matrix, it'll be nicer if you can print it on an A3 sheet. Hopefully at the DTA, if we do it face-to-face, we'll share it with all the presidents, is to look at the SCOT. So that strength, challenges, opportunities, and threats are on the first row. Eventually looking at the S's, 2B, the club vision at the lower left corner, and eventually looking at the strategic priorities next to it. Once that is done, then we can start highlighting those important aspects of membership, service projects, the club admin, and the fundraising, which makes the club happen, and other things like public image, district obligations, and also statutory obligations. Compliances becomes a big thing because if once you take, until then nobody will tell you, but once you take office on July 1st, everything will end up in the laps of the president to say, look, you must comply with everything that the district wants and the timelines that the RI imposes on us. So this document would be shared at the, with all the presidents. And again, there is another document which goes with it, which speaks about the guidelines of how that one-page matrix should be filled up. And that spells out exactly how do we park our annual goals, our actions, the resources needed, the people responsible for it, the measurable outlines or the milestones of the project, and also the timelines behind it. And a review document of how far we have gone with them and what are the adjustments that we want to make. I'm not sure how legible this is, especially if you're using small devices, but this is an example of a document that I picked out from a club in Mexico. Unfortunately, I don't have any published Rotary strategic plans, especially from both local and even regional. So this is one nice document, speaks about what is their SCOT analysis. So if you look at this club, which is San Miguel in Mexico, they actually look at their strengths and their weaknesses. If you read that strength, it's primarily government liaison. They're very strong in their fraternity of the government. The weaknesses are everything that every club is so generic that every club, even in our district, will be able to actually outline. You look at the opportunities out there is again the work that they can do, but the threats are exactly what most of our clubs actually encounter, which is competition from other clubs, competition for resources, competition for people, and inability to actually execute. So this is one good example. Another example is actually one document I picked out from the Rotary Club of Michigan. The Rotary Club of Michigan speaks about very clearly in terms of their mission, the values, which they have actually anchored on the 4-way test, the vision of wanting to see this club become a community club, especially onto the youth population there, and very clear goals. If you look at on the right of the slide, those goals have been outlined so clearly. So like what Zed was expounding earlier, if we look at the public relation work that they want to do, they are very clear about what is that the impact that they want to do and measurable at a very granular level. So they speak about the outcomes. They speak about things like what they want to do in Facebook and says, look, in Facebook, we want to get 20 likes every month and we want this to be 240 likes. They actually measure it very well. And if you read that document, the bullet point number E speaks about they want outreach to males between the age of 25 to 34 in that number of years. So they spell out a very good measurable KPIs in their document. And again, for membership, they speak about retention, they speak about conversion. They have associate members, so they speak about 70% conversion. Why I share some of these documents are, I will share this even with the training team. It is to that level that that planning was done. Again, the Rotary Club of Canada, in Rotary Club Ontario in Canada speaks about their strategic priorities, which is the strategic priorities of Rotary itself: reach, engage, impact, and adapt. They go on to enumerate this document very clearly in terms of parking, the number of people behind it, the resources that they need, the measures that they will do, and the assumptions that they make. So this gives us a very clear idea of what strategic planning should be, what we as the district training team wants to do, especially when we go into the DTA in a couple of weeks, in 6 weeks time from now, is to look at a strategic planning document that we possibly can make for, if not very ambitious, at least 20% of our clubs. So if we can work with some of the incoming AGs, probably look at some of the Klang Valley-based clubs and come out with the strategic planning document, that will be a very great achievement. One more example I wanted to share, but I'll just keep this in the interest of time. Everything else being said, there is a big issue of why strategic planning doesn't really work the way it's prescribed earlier. Simply because if we look at it from strategic and then look at the goals and objectives and activities, and hopefully we get results. But this unanswered but very pertinent, very pervasive thing that we have among our clubs is actually the culture of the club. That is something that is very hard to break. It's simply because of legacy, it is because of leadership, it is because of dominance, it's also because of resources, and also because of people. So these cultures, the values that they prescribe to, the practices of the club, the behavior of the members, both past and present, which actually comes up with the results. So that cultural analysis is so much more important when we start looking at strategic priorities. And reason why strategic priorities has not been able to translate to a very important priority of our clubs is simply because the culture of the club doesn't allow us to do that. But hopefully, obviously the district governor, KSTO, has done a great job of trying to change this mindset. Dato Bindi is very steadfast on wanting to at least see these documents come out, especially at our club levels moving into the year 2021-22. These three documents and these three things will be shared with all the presidents, which is the strategic planning document, the Rotary Health Check, and also the Vibrant Club document available on Rotary Club Central, but also will be sent to you with the, by the district training team. And this will help you do the planning for the strategy as we move forward into DTA. So again, assess to be the resources and the people that we have, and tracking of what we want to do will probably give us the numbers that Dato Bindi has said, which is 200 plus, 2 clubs, net increase of 2 regardless of size, 300,000 annual giving, 50,000 to polio, 50,000 to endowment, and also move the needle on 7 projects that he actually espoused for next year. Thank you, and hope to see you in DTA in 6 weeks' time.